Hey everyone, welcome back to FPL Fran. Today's video is going to be a slightly different video. Yes, we're still in Game Week 30, but we have a new thing to announce, and FPL has announced it. It's a new game mode. It's called FPL Challenge, and the whole point really is to gear towards more casual players, but it also incentivizes, of course, players like us, people who love FPL, to get more immersed with FPL and to look at effectively a new game mode. So finally, shout out to FPL Focal, who did call out that we would have a new game mode this season. He was right. In the end, we have an FPL game mode, and it starts here in Game Week 30. The theme of the game mode is effectively free hits every week, or at least that's how an existing FPL player would look at it. Now, if you're a new player and you're looking at this thing called FPL Challenge, the whole purpose of it is really to have a weekly themed event and to have it refresh every week. So let's say, you're invested into FPL for this game week and this selection of fixtures within Game Week 30, but you don't have to, keep your focus, and you don't have to maintain your team constantly. You don't have to stay around the deadline, hopefully, to wait for me to react to leaks instead on live streams. Instead, you can just build a team that you like based on the theme of the week, and you create a free hit, and you can win some prizes as well as a result of that, as well as compete with your friends, compete with me as well, as a community. So the theme for this week in terms of Game Week 30 is actually unlimited fun. So I think we're all used to this in some other fantasy game modes, but the idea, of course, is you can go for as many players as you want and as expensive as you want. So usually what happens when we have a free hit in traditional FPL is we're still limited by the 100 million budget. Now, if you free hit it on Game Week 29, you might argue that there was no budget there and it was still awful. But this week we have a much better theme. And it is, of course, going to be based around, of course, unlimited funds for Game Week 30. So the big fixtures that I think that we want to be targeting this week are, of course, the Newcastle fixtures, the Spurs fixture, potentially the Liverpool fixture if you still back them quite a bit, and even, of course, the Chelsea fixture in particular. This is because, of course, you're looking at Burnley away, West Ham away, you're looking at Brighton away potentially, and of course, with, let's say, Man City and Arsenal, tough to sort of find players that you really want to have for this game week, with exception to maybe just Haaland. And then, of course, when we talk about, let's say, Chelsea, they probably have the team that I would say, or Tottenham rather, the team that you'd probably most want to have players in. And a lot of people are going to be looking at this week and questioning whether they can only pick 3 players from one team. And actually, the big twist with this game mode is that you can actually have 5 players from any one team. So here we can go for 5 Tottenham players to target Luton. We can go for 5 Chelsea players to target Burnley. Now, I still think it makes sense to sort of spread out the funds, because at the end of the day, it's not like every single Tottenham asset is going to haul. At the same time, not every single Chelsea asset's going to haul. It still makes sense, in my opinion, to pick the best picks, and that's what we're going to do this week for this video. I encourage you, of course, to create your own drafts here for your free hit here for the FPL challenge. But this is going to be my sort of first go at the draft, so I hope this helps out for you managers who are sort of looking at targeting these fixtures and just having fun really with FPL Challenge and seeing what we can do within the first week. So starting from the defense, we're actually going with the goalkeeper here, and I'll also talk about my bench goalkeeper. Based on the clean sheet odds, I think Fulham, for example, have a fantastic fixture versus Sheffield United, so definitely Leno's in consideration. So is Petrovic versus Burnley. And the reason why we're looking at these 2 keepers the most is because ultimately Burnley and Sheffield United are both the 2 worst teams in terms of expected goals in the Premier League. So when we talk about, let's say, the quality of their attack, they are bottom of the barrel, and Luton are actually quite far away from them. So when we look at that perspective, I think, of course, Leno and Petrovic are our best options. I think Petrovic is going to be the starting keeper for Chelsea, so I'm going to pick Petrovic as my goalkeeper. But then on my bench, I'm going to have Leno here. And just to let you guys know, of course, the sort of formation limits and rules are very similar to traditional FPL. So you can only have 3 defenders. You must have at least 3 defenders. You must field a formation with at least 1 forward. So for this week, I think, we want to go all out attack, really. We need to have 1 goalkeeper still. We're going to have a bench of 4 players. Petrovic is going to be my goalkeeper, and the 3 players that I'm going to be picking are, once again, attacking fullbacks. We love them, even though some attacking fullbacks didn't do so good last week. Hint, hint, Reguilon. But we'll be going for Udogie and Porro here, the remontada, as we say. Hopefully they can redeem themselves versus Luton, as opposed to the performance that they put out versus Fulham at Craven Cottage. Fortunately, Spurs are at home, so that's a huge bolster to their sort of effectiveness within this game week. We're also going for Malo Gusto. Now, Malo Gusto has a yellow flag in FPL, but He was only brought back from international duty with the under-23s for France due to illness. I think that he's definitely going to start. You could argue that Chilwell is another great attacking option from the fullback, from the fullback options that we have this week, but I still don't really like Chilwell that much. On the bench, though, I think we can definitely consider Chilwell. So Chilwell is there. And then Virgil van Dijk is at the back of my bench. Now, Virgil van Dijk is probably going to be at the start of your bench for a lot of FPL managers. But for you guys looking at FPL Challenge here, we have the luxury of putting Virgil van Dijk at the back of our bench. We could even put him ahead of Chilwell, but I still like that Chelsea attacking fixture. You guys know that, of course, we've gotten a lot of benefit from targeting teams like Burnley, Luton, and Sheffield United this season. So, why not continue to do so? So that's going to be our defense for this week, the 3 back. We're also going with a 4 midfield piece this week. And part of the reason why I'm struggling to go for that 5th midfielder is because I think United technically have a good fixture, so arguably their midfielders are quite good. You could also go for 3 Spurs midfielders as well. You could go for example, particularly since we can actually go for 5 Spurs players, I think it does make sense if you don't like any of the forwards within this draft to actually go for a 5th midfielder, and that very well could be a Spurs player anyway. So the player that I'm going to suggest, though, or at least the players that I will be suggesting, are going to be Son and Maddison from Spurs, of course, targeting Luton once again. We'll also be looking at Cole Palmer versus Burnley, Salah versus Brighton. Yes, Brighton's actually one of the tougher teams that we're going to target this week here with Salah, but Salah is Salah, and he's a fantastic player. And we also know that he's back fit. He's played a lot of games for Liverpool now, coming back from this injury. Not really worried about him overall. I think he's a fantastic pick. So that's going to be our 4-piece midfield. And then in the front line, what we're going to have this week is Haaland, Isak, and Watkins. Now, I think that there are a couple other forwards that definitely sort of can be thought about. Watkins can be replaced, in my opinion. I think he's probably the weakest player here. Maybe Haaland, if you're talking about fixtures. Ultimately, though, Haaland has access to penalties, which is really nice. Isak has a really good fixture here, also has access to penalties. And I think Watkins is potentially the player to drop, but he's got Wolves at home. Still a very good fixture, but you could argue that he could be the one that could be dropped here in this situation. I think Darwin is a fantastic player. Yes, of course. He also had a quote-unquote international break injury. So it might be the case that Darwin won't play that many minutes versus Brighton if his minutes are getting managed. But I still think that Darwin is a very, very good punt for this week, given how effective he is as a player, given the fact that Liverpool are still the best attacking team within this league, despite obviously Man City and Arsenal being close behind. And he's just a great sort of chance-creating forward. So if you like Darwin, you like the punt here, Liverpool are at home at Anfield, you can go for Darwin as well. But as I said, I prefer Isak, the penalty taker for Newcastle versus West Ham. I like Haaland still. Yes, of course, at the end of the day, we're not going to probably be captaining Haaland, but if you're telling me that I have an unlimited budget and I can squeeze in Haaland and not really care about it too much, have Mo Salah as well within the team, I'm going to do so. So we're going to have Haaland here. And probably the other 4 that we can think about is actually Muniz, right? Muniz is against Sheffield United at home. We talked about how we like to target weak teams. That would be Luton. That would be Sheffield United. He would be potentially also one of those players on the precipice of getting onto this draft here. But I'm still going to go with the 3 players that I mentioned. So sticking with Watkins here. And so on the bench for this week, we're actually going to be going with Richarlison. I think Richarlison makes sense because I'm not exactly sure at the time of recording this video whether he's going to play really consistent minutes on international break. We also need to sort of monitor any sort of news maybe before the deadline about the Spurs team and whether they plan to play, let's say, Richarlison back in the center forward position, whether there's going to be any tactical changes as a result of the sort of previously poor match versus Fulham. If that sort of happens, I do think that there's a little bit of a temptation from my side to actually put Watkins on the bench and to go with Richarlison and just go all out attack versus this Luton Town team and just go 5 out with Spurs. So that's an option here. But Richarlison's could be first bench for me in this situation. I just think that he's going to be a very fun punt as just, your first option off the bench if any of these players can't make it, and you can kind of forget about the team as well. I mean, I don't see many of these players missing out on fixtures. Cole Palmer was actually able to train for England today as well, so all signs are very positive right now. On the bench, as I said, the defenders are going to be Chilwell and Virgil van Dijk in that order, and then Bern Leno as the goalkeeping option, with Richarlison, of course, first on the bench. And that's going to be it. That's going to be my first ever FPL challenge draft. This is a new game mode. It sounds really fun. I hope we can actually have some players or even managers who watch the channel get some prizes, and I want to see where this kind of goes. So hopefully next week we'll have an interesting theme. and we can create another draft that might be a little bit more niche, that doesn't have all the big players. We'll see if we can find some differential picks, just like we did with Chris Wood on free at 29. So that's it. That's the FPL challenge. I hope I explained the rules well. Hope you guys enjoyed the sort of new game mode that's being introduced by FPL. I think that's quite fun in terms of bringing back some fans, just like the Second Chance League did last season. And that's it. So see you guys soon. Back for more FPL content, of course. This is a double upload. So thank you guys so much for watching if you're here and still watching me. But yeah, take care. Goodbye. And I'll see you soon.